Good evening. I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and now declare the meeting open. Please note that this meeting is being held virtually and webcast live over the internet on Council's website. We will commence the meeting with the following prayer. Almighty God, we humbly request that you bestow your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of your glory and to the betterment of the peoples of Cardinia Shire. Amen. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Tonight we have received no apologies, so it looks like we have all councillors in attendance, which is fantastic. And I appreciate everyone making the effort tonight because I know it's a little bit more difficult with this online porthole, but we are in unique times, so as such we are playing it out. Before moving the business before us tonight, I would like to take this opportunity to reflect on two prominent local identities that have passed away recently. June Wright was a passionate resident of Kuirup and provided an amazing amount of volunteer time and effort for her local community. June received the Shire's Senior Citizen of the Year Award in 2019 in recognition of her tireless lifetime of achievements. Also noting that Laura Levins from Upper Beaconsfield was another pillar of our local community. Laura was a passionate environmentalist and is credited with securing the 50-hectare Hillview Bushland Reserve from Macquarie Development. Laura produced several significant publications, including The Birds of Cardinia, Wildflowers in the Dandenong Ranges, and most recently, the Insect Field Guide to No Legs or Many, Spineless and Wild. What a great title, hey? I would like to extend the council's condolences to June and Laura's families and their multitude of adoring friends and many people in the community that have benefited from their efforts they have put out so far. So just to make an acknowledgement of these well-respected women of our Cardinia Shire that have recently passed away. So our condolences go out to all their family and friends. Now back to tonight's business. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting as listed? Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Brown. Can I please have a vote? All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Councillors, do we have any declarations of interest that you would like to announce? There being none, we'll move on to ordinary business. The council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items for withdrawal for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Item 6.1.1, Amendment to Planning Permit 200 Beaconsfield Emerald Road. Withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen, you have an alternative motion you would like to put forward?
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following. That the amended planning permit application T130057-1 for the proposed amendments to the planning permit T130057 to allow low-level live music in the outdoor areas of the hotel at 200 Beaconsfield Emerald Road in Beaconsfield to be refused, and a refusal to grant a permit be issued based on the following grounds. 1, the proposal is not consistent with clause 13.07-1S, land use compatibility. 2, the proposal is not consistent with clause 13.05-1S, noise abatement, as there is the potential for community amenity to be reduced by noise emissions. 3, the proposal results in unreasonable off-site amenity impacts. 4, the proposal cannot ensure that noise-sensitive residential uses are adequately protected from noise, which is inconsistent with clause 53.06, live music and entertainment noise. And 5, the proposal does not represent the orderly planning of the area. I move that alternative motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please, for this motion? Councillor Brown, thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown. I think everyone, all councillors would know this location, 200 BeconsfieldEmerald Road in Beaconsfield. It is the site of the Cardinia Park Hotel. So the site currently contains, the Cardinia Park Hotel, a historic hotel which has been located on the site for many years, I think well over 100 years. Originally called the Bush Inn, then the Cardinia Creek Hotel, and sometimes referred to as the Cardinia Creek Hotel. This pub was built, as I said, in 1883, with the hotel signage stating it was established in 1926. Throughout the years, the hotel has been subject to a number of planning applications, the most notable being the one in 2013, which allowed for the buildings and works to the existing hotel, use and installation of gaming machines. I think everyone would agree it's a fantastic hotel since they changed hands back in 2013. Great meals, great sort of experience, and I know they would be really struggling at this current time in our lives. But they've got an application, and their proposal is the hotel is seeking permission to delete conditions 15 and 16 of the permit and amend the relevant provision in the patron management plan currently endorsed under condition 7 of the permit, so as to allow low-level amplified live entertainment in external areas of the hotel. It is proposed, as the external areas are used for alfresco dining, entertainment would be the auxiliary to food service and music noise emissions commensurate with certain types of performances, generally being acoustic duo, acts and or background DJs. It is proposed, or the application has sought, that the low-level amplified background music should be allowed during the hours outlined in the liquor licence, which is Sunday between 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. Good Friday and Anzac Day, 12 noon to 11 p.m. and on any other day between 7 a.m. and 12 midnight. So that's the application, is to extend those hours to allow music in those external areas. The application was advertised over the area, and there were six objections received. And I thought really long and hard about this application. I've read all the submissions. I've spoken to residents. I've visited the site. I went to the site on my exercise walk today, and it's a beautiful area. It's a very unique area. It's could be in the middle of country, but there is nearby residents that are quite close to this area. It is Green Wedge, and I'm really concerned about the noise impact. They are applying for late hours, and I understand council officers did try to talk to the applicant to look at other times that might be applicable to the applicant and work for the applicant, but my understanding was that was refused, and they're seeking the hours outlined above. I've got really concerns about the adverse impact on residents, the wider community in that area. It is Green Wedge, and I know there's reports attached about noise abatement, but I do not have confidence that it will not have adverse impact on the neighbouring properties. If there were times that were more appropriate, around dining, that they complement dining, I think, I could look at it. But, to have 11 p.m. and midnight, I don't believe that is compatible with dining experience. And I've got concerns about the noise. I do appreciate that, since this permit was lodged back in 2013, there has been no complaints because they haven't been able to have that noise outside at those times, but they are seeking that amendment. My understanding, back prior to the current owners, there was issues around noise, and that's what residents are fearing, that could return to those days. So I acknowledge it's a great facility, a great business, but what they're applying for is not appropriate, and I'm asking councillors to refuse the application on the reasons I've outlined. So thank you. I look forward to other councillors' comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I will now go to Councillor Brown to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for moving this amendment. I too am concerned about the noise, a low-level amplified background music. Is there such a thing? I don't think that I've ever heard of such a thing. The definition of low level, I guess, is in the eye of the ear of the beholder. Most hotels that I know, as soon as the dining facility or amenities are over, they clear the plates away as quick as they can so they can get the music on so people will stay around the place. I've read the objections from the residents around the area, and I'm inclined to agree with them that the noise arising from patrons and music in that particular area, because you need to know the demographics or the geographic area there, the slope of the land, etc., gives cause for noise to penetrate a great distance. As I said before, there's been no, or as Councillor Owen said before, there's been no previous problems with patrons prior to this application, so we can't really hang our hat on that. However, this lends itself to there may be problems with patrons leaving, alcoholism and the likes. I'm not a wowser by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that having these longer hours will be to the detriment of not only to the local community around the area, but also to the broader community when these people are driving home. The application is to erect loudspeakers throughout the external areas of the hotel, particularly across the beer gardens, etc. And one can only assume what noise that would fire up if somebody didn't take great care in the volume that they had these speakers on. So I'm with Councillor Owen. I think that this needs a lot more work. I note that the owners do not agree with Councillor's recommendation with the conditions put on this application, so I think it's prudent to refuse it at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do any other councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with Councillor Owen. I have used that hotel on a continual basis for dinners and meetings and the occasional wedding ceremony. It's a great place, as you said. It's a great identity. The residents, have got a beautiful area around it. And the noise itself, which is people eating, is quite loud, but enjoyable. When we talk about when they say acoustic music is one of the issues, there's acoustic and then there's electric acoustic. So, the Mayor would understand what I'm saying here. The electric acoustic would be much louder than the acoustic guitars and background music. But I agree that the times that they're wanting to extend to a little bit beyond consideration for the residents around, and we have to consider all areas, not just one area of entertainment. We have to think about the people that live in the area, and we could agree or disagree, but at the end of the day, we're thinking about our community there. And if it was a DJ music, well, that's even louder. So, they haven't really specified other than they're saying acoustic, but it could be a little bit louder even if it went through. So if it was earlier hours, then I may see it in a different way. But I'm inclined to go the same way as Councillor Owen, and I will support him in this because I don't think that it's really good for our community around the hotel there at this stage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this item? There being none, I'll just, before I go back to Councillor Owen to summarise, I'll just say that I'm happy to support Councillor Owen's motion in this regard as well. I think he's outlined quite adequately the concerns that he has raised here. So I'm happy to support your motion here. So, Councillor Owen, I'll go back to you to summarise.
Thank you, councillors, for your comments. Just in summary, it's a very unique area there. I've got concerns for the neighbouring properties. It's a real sense of serenity there, and I think having music up till midnight, 11 p.m. is real concerns. Back in 2013, when the most recent application, bar this one, came to council, that was definitely a consideration at the time, and council had decided that it wasn't appropriate to have noise and music up until those times. So that then permit reflected, obviously, the request now to amend that. Something that was raised through this whole process was there was a condition on the last planning permit of a requirement of the applicant to plant some trees along the Payne Road boundary to assist with, just providing that vegetation buffer from the car park and any lighting, etc. And that hasn't been done yet. So I understand that through this process, council will be working with the applicant to make that happen, because that's important for a number of residents in that area. So I look forward to that being done through this process. I look forward to working with the hotel if they come up with another sort of proposal that's appropriate and sort of reflects the concerns of the residents and the submitters. But I just want to once again, say to the hotel, they run a really good operation that our community enjoy. But at this time, this application that they've asked for is not appropriate, and I move so. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour? I declare this carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next item, item 6.1.2, amended report planning permit amendment T120062-1, 400 Mountain Road, Gembrook, withdrawn by Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council 1, note the contents of this report, and 2, endorse the below compliance plan for the Mountain Harvest Food at 400 Mountain Road, Gembrook. And I'll speak to the dot points if I get a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Do I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Owen. I'll go back to you, Councillor Wilmot, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for seconding. Mayor, as you know, this report was brought to the June meeting, and we deferred the report at June so that we could go back and have some further discussions with the residents that have been working closely with council through the development of this whole report. And in fact, it's through discussions with those residents that the report came about, because there's quite a long history to this business and this site. And it goes back to about 2012, 2013, when the business first began and the first permits were issued. And as outlined within the report, there was some things that happened at that stage that perhaps, in hindsight, weren't the best possible outcome. So this report goes through all of that, goes through the current amended permit that was issued just earlier this year after the building, after one of their buildings caught on fire, and they had a fire at the premises. They had to go back, and as a result of that amended permit plan, there was some issues with the hours that this business could operate. There was a belief amongst the local residents and the business operators, in fact, that they were restricted to certain hours, and through the whole process of this amended permit, it was discovered that those hours weren't enforceable and that they actually had open-ended hours. So the officers and the business owners came to an agreement to put some restrictions around it, although it's a greater amount of hours than what everybody had been believing up until that point. There was also some issues with the way that was all conducted, where officers didn't feel it was necessary to advertise that amended permit, and they issued the permit without going out to the community and allowing the community to have the opportunity to put in submissions, and that's raised some concerns because over the years there's been a lot of compliance reports and complaints around this business and the way they've conducted their business. And while some of those reports and those complaints haven't held up, many have. And some of them have even gone on to other authorities, mainly the EPA, etc. And they have been held up by those other authorities. So there is a very long history here, and I want to thank those residents that we've been working with over the last couple of months to establish this report. And I note that at present time, we've had some further emails from those residents and further conversations with them in the last few days. And even this amended report has still got some points in it that don't sit well with the residents. But as I say, this is almost a history report here, and all through history, there's always more than one version of every story. Historians very rarely always agree on every point. And I guess that's the same as this case here. This is the history according to the council perspective. The council officers, it outlines the steps that were taken back in 2012-13, the steps that were taken earlier this year, and it acknowledges that there have been some errors and some areas that could have been done better. But that's history. The second part of this report is the compliance plan going further. And there's some really good steps in this compliance plan that will actually address a lot of the things that have been raised as complaints in the past. Some of the complaints in the past deal with the noise that is emitted from the machinery on this property. So as part of the compliance plan, there will be a full independent report on the noise levels done within 3 months of full operation resuming on the site. Odour is another major issue, and actually I will just go back half a step if I can. One of the points that the residents have raised that they're still not happy with is a term within the report where they are classified as interested residents. And while some of them are just that, they are just generally interested residents, there are residents that have been directly impacted by the noise, the odours, etc. So they're not just interested, they have been adversely affected. And I want to acknowledge that these people have had their own business plans that they wanted to put in place. They wanted to open up their own rural industries on their own properties, but their plans may be in jeopardy because of the noises and the smells and the odours that are emitted from this business. So the compliance plan is around addressing some of those concerns. And if we can address them properly and absolutely work with the owners and the operators of this business to make sure that they're doing the right thing and using the best possible equipment to deal with the impact of the noise, to restrict the odours that are emitted out into the environment. That's what this is all about. We need to acknowledge that not everything happened the way it perhaps should have in the past, but that we are going to deal with it in the future. And the plan is about exactly that, outlining the steps that we will be taking. And it's to be noted that not every situation, we haven't got a crystal ball. We're not going to be able to predict every possible scenario that may or may not occur. We have to issue permits on the proviso that the operator is going to do the right thing. So we can't say that, we're going to give you this permit, but we know that you're going to break it. We've got to assume that people are going to uphold the conditions applied with these permits. So the plan here is to do some testing with the odour. There's particular problems at night under certain weather conditions, the way the atmosphere traps the smell into the valleys and so forth. We're going to ask the residents to just keep a track of those things. And now, within the plan, within 3-4 months of the operation, the council officers will visit the site randomly on 4 different occasions in the first 12 months to just assess what sort of odour is around. So if the residents can provide us with some details on when these things are happening, they'll have a better opportunity to time those visits accordingly and hopefully experience exactly what the residents are experiencing. And hopefully when the factory is rebuilt and the best possible equipment is being used, those problems will be a lot less than what they currently have, or fingers crossed, they won't exist anymore. That would be the ultimate goal. I'll leave it there for the moment, Mayor, and I'll let my seconder speak, and as well as any other councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. I'll now go to Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. You've really covered it extremely well, and I know yourself and Councillor Springfield, the Mayor, has really worked with the residents. I haven't been able to make all the meetings via Skype, etc. But thank you for taking the lead on this, you both. Definitely over the years, I've received correspondence from those neighbouring residents and phone calls, and as you said, Councillor Wilmot, there's definitely lessons learnt to be had. It is time to reset. And also there's a clear direction in relation to compliance and enforcement. And I think Council has clearly undertaken that and has obviously advised residents that that's something that we're committed to doing. So thank you, Councillor Wilmot, for covering it very wisely, and I fully accept the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll put it out to councillors. Is there any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Wilmot to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen. And yes, Councillor Owen, you're correct. There have been quite a few meetings with these residents and again with staff. The Mayor and I did meet with them since the June meeting, and I acknowledge that due to your work commitments, you haven't been able to partake in those meetings, but you've kept abreast of this all the way through, and I'm sure that the residents acknowledge and appreciate that as well. In saying that this report deals with the history, I don't mean to lessen the concerns of these residents. Their concerns are legitimate, absolutely legitimate. When they're living with the impact of this business, they are legitimate, and the business has done the wrong thing at different times, and they've been caught out, particularly the EPA. They have broken the rules and the regulations, and they've been held accountable for that. Going forward, it is slightly new operators, same family, slightly different people in charge now. So hopefully, going forward, things will change. They've got an opportunity here to make a bit of a fresh start. And going forward, let's hope that they do abide by the conditions, and that the residents that are impacted can go outside on a summer's evening and enjoy the fresh air rather than being locked inside their houses because of the stench that's coming from the factory and the odour of cooking fats, etc. So fingers crossed that's what happens. I'm very hopeful that if we work cooperatively with the business, that we can make these things happen, and we've certainly got a plan in place now to address the concerns if they do arise again. So I'll leave it there, and I hope that councillors will support and acknowledge this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. I will now put this to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.2.1, Worrell Reserve Master Plan, withdrawn by Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council adopt the Master Plan for Worrell Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Owen. Back to you, Councillor Wilmot, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is a good report, and this is a report that has been a long time coming. I think, and Councillor Owen, you might be able to correct me if I've got the date wrong, but I think it was back in 2013 when we met with all the different user groups on the reserve. I think it was a Sunday afternoon when there was a football game going, so it was really busy. But we met with all of the user groups, and we did a walk around of the reserve, and we listened to their aspirations of what they wanted to see happen on that reserve. So that was 2013. It then took until 2017 to actually start working on this master plan. However, I do note that there's been other town plans, the spatial plan, etc., for Emerald that has included all of this along the way. So it's not been completely forgotten for any length of time. But 2017, we started to meet on a regular basis with the user groups here, and certainly councillors over that period have attended a number of meetings, and officers have continued those meetings until they got to a draft plan situation. And that plan then went out for 6 weeks public consultation back in April of 2019. And there was a number of key themes that were identified during that consultation, one of them being parking. Parking has been a major issue in this area for a long time because it is a gravel car park, so there's no lines to tell people where to park. They just park everywhere, and it's an issue because it's very unregulated at the moment. I do note that there is money allocated in this current budget for the car parking, for it to be sealed, line marked, etc. But we're still waiting for the car parking plan to be finalised. Once that's done in the next, fingers crossed, not too distant future, we can then move on with that. But things also like a skate park, that's been a long-term aspiration of this community for many years, since before I was a councillor. I remember meeting with some young people back in about 2011 to talk about skating needs within the hills. So it's a long time coming, and thankfully during the consultation period, all of that was identified, and some of that has now been incorporated into this master plan. And there have been situations that have changed over the last couple of years as well, particularly with the SES, who currently occupy a fairly decent area out the back of this reserve. I guess it's probably 2 years ago now, it was announced that they were on the move, and they purchased another block of land within the township, and they will be moving within the next 18 months, fingers crossed. So that will then free up that site. And again, it's been hotly contended as to what should happen with that site. But with the master plan, it's identified that that area is going to be used as overfilled car parking areas. I note also that we've had some correspondence just recently from the tennis club outlining their aspirations for the future. And they've always been a very strong tennis community in this area, and they have plans to grow their community, their tennis community, even further. And that's great. That's exactly what these clubs should be doing. So, but this plan going forward won't restrict anybody's aspirations of growing their clubs or making their new tennis club want a new pavilion. So it doesn't restrict that. It identifies that this is needed, and this plan will actually be a good tool to be able to go out and seek further funding, so that we can make some of those aspirations that are held in the plan a reality. So I'm really pleased that we're at this point tonight. I'm really looking forward to this car parking plan coming forward, and I'm sure that my ward councillors would agree with me on that. That's been a very hotly contended thing within the community. So we're looking forward to seeing that one finished as well. And once it's all sealed, this area is going to be looking really great. I'll leave it there and I'll let my seconder speak. Thanks. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Owen, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilmot, for your great coverage of this item. I think you're right. I think it was back in 2013 with yourself and Councillor Baxter. It has been a long time, but things have progressed since that time. Obviously, we had the delays with the Hills Hub and so forth like that. Obviously already we've finished construction of the change rooms and the pavilion. That was so much needed for our sporting teams, particularly female-friendly participants. It's great to see. One day soon we'll open that, and that will be a great celebration for the community. But what I really like about this as well, and Councillor Wilmot, you did mention this, is the skate park. Back in 2016, yourself and I moved a amendment to the skating strategy. to ensure that Emerald, would have a future site for a skating facility. And I know that particularly the EVA, which is now called, is that they were strong advocates for a skating facility, particularly for our young people in Emerald. And it's really great that through this master plan process, we've really embedded that in a multi-use space for young people. And that will include skate park. I know it's been a long issue. There's been different sites along Worrell Reserve for a skate park and different, mixed views to that. But I think we've got this right. This is going to be a very busy space, and busy spaces are safe places, in my opinion. Activation and having this sort of multi-purpose site, you really reduce, some of that antisocial behaviour that you see at some other sort of skate parks. But if you design it well, and you have it in connection with other well-used facilities, you don't see those issues. So I'm really welcome this skate park aspect to this master plan. Also, public toilets has been discussed at length, and I'm really pleased that we'll see the removal of the old brick toilets outside the Hills Hub. I've had so many emails about that, and some residents supported its retention. But I think what we're providing is a brand new public accessible toilet, basically in that location, and that's really good for all the users of this reserve. Whether you've got young children using the playground, they need a toilet. When they need a toilet, they need it now, and to have a toilet there that's open, at times that people are using that reserve, that's fantastic. The Hills Hub will provide some element of public toilets during business hours of the Hills Hub, and that provides a different toileting experience during business hours. But at least you've got this new public toilet as well as part of it. I know over the years, through submissions to this master plan, we've had submissions from other community groups in Emerald wanting the use of the SES old building there, once the SES relocate. I was really, wanting to accommodate these groups, but councillors have been advised as that building has gone beyond any sort of reusable aspect of that building. It's gone beyond its useful life. So, I do want council to continue working with those groups, whether it's the Lions Club, and I believe Rotary also express interest in that. So I welcome, and I really hope that council continues that dialogue with those groups to see whether somewhere on the reserve there could be room for storage at the appropriate location. But I do encourage those user groups, those community groups, to continue to work with council, because I think that was vital. If the building had a useful life and still could be retained, I was personally open to that, but I've been advised that is not the case and it cannot be retained. So I look forward to the delivery of this master plan. I note your comments, Councillor Wilmot, about the tennis, and it's great to have that long-term plan. So council, will through its own council ratepayers budget dollars and also other government grants, will work towards the delivery of this plan. It will be a number of years. We've got a large number of master plans across our shire that are competing for those to be delivered, but this will be in the mix for future council budgets and also other government grant applications to really deliver this end result of the Worrell Reserve Master Plan. I fully support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do any other councillors have any comments they'd like to make towards this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd just like to share, I must say the difference in transformation at Emerald has been amazing. I must say, when I first got on council, the Emerald Library had only just opened in 2006. And it cost $2.2 million, which has been a wonderful asset up there. Then in 2009, there was an Emerald strategy that came out about the Emerald District. And in that, it basically combined all the different areas that needed to be improved. And then over the years, I know and watch the Rangers Ward councillors work away on bits and pieces. But when you really have a look, and when you go up there to have a look at what it used to look like compared to what it looks like today, it is just quite amazing. It's done it, and with the Hills Hub about to open, which cost $8.1 million up there. And when you have a look at what's happened with the junior football club there, and there's this master plan will just tie off all the ends on all the things in that development that need to be done in future. I think it's been great work by the councillors and council up in that area, and I look forward to seeing it get finished off. I must say, when I went to visit several times over the years in the past, I can always remember the netball club basically sharing with us that you couldn't play on the courts because the runoff on them was too small to legally play. So that was one of the impetuses when we were looking around up there at the at that area, that they needed a new home, and they got one. So council had in the past sold some land before I got on council. We had to buy it back because it was the only flat bit up in the area that we could purchase, and they've got a new home, and that came out of this. So anyway, I think it looks wonderful up there. I think that it's coming along in a great way, and I think anyone who would move up there would be really impressed. So I just endorse the master plan. I think it really does finish off. It ticks all those boxes, like the skate park, and talks about the different groups, whether they're going to stay or move, or whether something can be done on that site. So anyway, I just endorse it. I think it's really good, and I think Emerald's looking really, really smart up there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, and I agree with you. Emerald is looking smart these days. We have a great community, and it's been, we've had some infrastructure, considerable infrastructure that's come about in recent years, which the community is very appreciative. I'll just like to add my sentiments in line with the previous councillors' comments. This is going to be a great step forward. It's been a long time in the making, this master plan, so I look forward to adopting these items that are on there and seeing this progress into the future. The toilet is one big thing. There's been, in recent weeks, it came up for contention again. There was quite an active Facebook conversation going on about it. So I am pleased that this plan endorses, replacing those toilets. I think it'll be much needed, and it'll be more fitting with the amenity there, with the new hub and the new junior football club and such. I'd just like to make a comment too on the Emerald Tennis Club. They have been quite active in their membership and their group, advocating for the elements that they need within this master plan. So I'd like to thank them for their participation. They have been great. And just note too that they had raised some concerns over the weekend, and some concerns towards their classification of being a neighbourhood classification for a neighbourhood facility, and they feel that that their facility or their club is more deserving of a higher rating, of a district rating perhaps. But look, I just want to assure the tennis club members and such out there that when we endorse this plan, it is not limiting their ability. We will have the ability to build, to upgrade the facility as is needed for the club, and we can visit that within our sports facilities standard strategy when that time comes. But as it currently sits, it is rated as a neighbourhood facility, and that is by the standards policy, and there is no way of changing that without having a process of properly reviewing it. So we don't want to hold this master plan up. There's many user groups here, so I just recognise that I'll happy to look at that in the future to make sure we address the appropriate needs for this club as well as all our clubs across the Shire. So I think there's some concerns there. I just hope that they realise this is a positive move forward, and nothing's going to restrict their ability in the future. As Councillor Wilmot pointed out, it will be all done with the design standards that we have to make sure we meet the needs, as it would be for any club within our region. So thank you, councillors, for everyone and words you have supported so far. I'll just see if any other councillors would like to speak to this item. There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Wilmot to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for your support. Just in closing, I'd just like to thank the different reps that have participated in this process from the different user groups. They put plenty of time and effort into this, and I want to acknowledge that and to thank them for their time. And I also thank the tennis club, who through the consultation period conducted their own survey of their members to get a really good overview of how their club were feeling about different things. So that takes a fair bit of organising and collating all that information. So I thank them for taking that initiative. And I also thank all the other people from the Emerald community and the district for their submissions and their participation within the consultation. It really was quite a thorough consultation. The staff even went down to the high school and spoke to, I think, about 100 high school students about what they wanted to see at their reserve as well. So I thank the staff for their time. I thank everybody that's been involved. I really do look forward to seeing the rest of this master plan evolve over the coming years. There's certainly been some changes in the last 8 years to that space. By the time we've realigned the Oval just recently, the new club rooms for the footy club, and the gym facility, of course, that's attached to that, as well as the Hills Hub. So we've certainly made some changes in the 8 years, and there will be plenty more of changes to come, hopefully, in the next few years. So thank you, everybody. I hope you all support this master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillors, I'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour? Any against? I now declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll continue on for next item is item 6.2.2, National Growth Areas Alliance COVID-19 Economic Recovery Proposal, withdrawn by Councillor Ross. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that Council endorse the National Growth Area Alliance COVID-19 Economic Recovery Proposal.
All right, thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown. Back to you, Councillor Ross, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown. In speaking to this recommendation, I'll just give people a little bit of an outlook on what the National Growth Area Alliance does. It's a group that represents all the growth areas in Australia, and you become a member group of this group, and it's home to basically 5 million people, or 20% of Australia's population in the growing areas around our major cities. They represent those councils who need to have a voice on a national level, talking to national governments. In the past, we've had a lot of success with this particular group. They've basically, over the last 20 years, built up their profile to the point where at the last federal election, I know that I went there as mayor, I went there as deputy mayor, I know other mayors have represented in Cardinia Shire at the National Growth Area Alliance with our CEO, and we probably finished up with probably almost towards $20 million towards things that were coming into our area in relation to roads, recreational reserves, infrastructure, and it's mostly not budgeted projects. And what they do is, as a voice, they've identified during this COVID-19 situation that we have, the dire straits that that growth areas will be in. And just speaking to this a little bit, when you have a look at it, the economic shock brought on by the COVID-19 will have disproportionately effect on growth areas due to their reliance on the hardest hit sectors for employment and the prominence of vulnerable communities. And some of the things that drove them towards what they're asking for in their proposal is conservative estimates of unemployment rates will be up to 16%, could leave 424,000 people in growth areas unemployed. 334,000 of Australia's most vulnerable small businesses, those employing fewer than 20 people, operate in the growth areas. Our GDP is forecast to decline in most growth area councils at the higher than a percentage rate of the national average. 16 of the top 20 postcodes suffering mortgage stress in growth areas are in growth areas, and half of all households in growth areas are under mortgage stress, with more than 300,000 low-income families at particular risk. Internal migration and high birth rates will see population growth in these areas continue to be above average rates during the pandemic recovery. Stimulus applications to growth areas are essential, and the economic recovery period provides an unparalleled opportunity to increase growth in these areas with their productivity. This is essential that this report goes forward to the federal government and departments and the minister, and I know the opposition as well. They're all interested. They turn up to their the events that they run, and this is going to be absolutely vital at this time, because as I pointed out, there's that many people who will be affected at the back end of this. We're just unaware of it at the moment. So anyway, I'm also too, I need to declare that I'm on the, it's declared in the notice that Councillor Ross is a member of the National Growth Area Authority Strategic Advisory Committee. So I'm absolutely certain that we will always have Cardinia Shire well represented in that space. And I know that I talk with our CEO and the Mayor on these issues, and they represent Council. So therefore I know that this will assist us, and it will certainly put on the drawing board Cardinia Shire in relation to our needs for our community. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I hope other people support this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll now go to Councillor Brown to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for withdrawing this item, this recommendation. I haven't got much more to say, really, because Councillor Ross, I think, has covered it quite comprehensively, except I'd just like to endorse and note that Councillor Ross is on the National Growth Area Alliance Advisory Committee, and I'd like to thank him for representing Council on this committee. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Okay, it looks like there's none, so I'll go back to Councillor Ross to summarise. Councillor Ross, I think your mute might be on, because I can see your face mask bulging, but yeah.
No, that's all right. Thank you for that. Look, these grants and these proposals are hugely important, because as a council, with the growth that we do have and the challenging dynamics geologically that we have within Cardinia Shire, ratepayers can only pay for so much, and most of the money we get for these things are totally unbudgeted. So anyway, I just think they're a great group. Anything we can throw behind them and represent is great. So anyway, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.2.3, COVID-19 delegations, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the report be noted.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Schilling. I'll go back to Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Schilling, for your second. At the special council meeting held on the 30th of March 2020, Council resolved to execute an emergency instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. At the time, there was some concern that due to COVID-19 restrictions and provisions of the Local Government Act 1989 at the time, that Council would be unable to formally hold meetings. At this time, the Chief Executive Officer has not been required to use any of the powers that exist under the emergency instrument of delegation. So just a bit of a background, due to a range of concerns around COVID-19, the emergency instrument of delegations was determined as a prudent and considered approach back in March 2020. The instrument of delegation allowed the CEO to, among other things, award a contract for works over $1 million but under $5 million. I note to date, as we speak at the moment, no decision of the CEO has made under these sort of delegations. But I understand that will change in the future with a number of projects up for tender. I think this report is a good one. It is a new one. It ensures transparency. I know the CEO is committed in advising councillors, quickly after a decision is made, and I understand other officers are also committed to doing that. But this report finalises it in a formal sort of report to council, which is then obviously tabled at each council meeting and discussed by council. So it's about transparency, and it's about really wrapping it all together in a report, so councillors and the community can sort of understand what decisions have been made during these times that we're currently in. So I support the report, and I thank the CEO and Mr. Boulder for preparing it. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll go to Councillor Schilling to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, too, for moving this important report. I know that when it comes down to delegations and delegating anything from the Central Council group or increasing delegation power, sometimes I guess people can be a little bit sceptical around what that means, particularly in the community. But this is a really important contingency plan to have in place in the event that we aren't able to meet. And COVID-19 has brought a number of challenges, as we all know, to the community or to the whole world. So having this in place not only allows the CEO to keep things moving, but it also allows the CEO to be able to move in a way which is fast and adapt to a rapidly changing environment. And I think by having this report, that does add that extra level of transparency, because decisions shouldn't be made behind closed doors. And the fact that this report will be produced, which gives the community some insight into what is happening, I think is a great thing. So I support seeing this report into the future, and I think Council made a fantastic decision to increase those delegations, particularly given the rapidly changing environment that we're all living in at the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Owen to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Schilling. As the report says, it is not considered prudent at this time to revoke the emergency instrument of delegation, as the COVID-19 pandemic is not over yet, and the future remains unknown in regard to the impact. So it's wise that we keep these delegations going, and the CEO is committed to advising councillors when those decisions are made, and this will be reported back to these reports. Also, I understand there are a number of contracts, about to be awarded, so that will also stimulate our local economy, and hopefully getting people jobs as well as part of these works. So I look forward to those projects being reported in this report on a monthly basis. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll put this to a vote. All councillors in favour? I declare the item carried. Thank you. Moving along to item 6.2.4, the Growing Suburbs Fund grant application for 2020 to 2021, withdrawn by Councillor Ross. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council endorses Princess Highway Southside Shared Path application for funding under the 2020 to 21 Growing Suburbs Fund.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Owen. Back to you, Councillor Ross, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, in endorsing this, I think it needs to be highlighted. This is another group which has produced a lot of really, really good infrastructure in Cardinia Shire. The Interface Councils Group, which is basically for Victorian growth councils, has been lobbying for years and years to get a Growing Suburbs Fund. And this Growing Suburb Fund means that council, under different conditions, applies for different pieces of infrastructure that we actually don't have budgeted. and aren't actually on our books. They change the rules every year, and I must say council has been well represented. I know our general managers go in there. I know our CEO's been in there at times. I know the mayors of the day have been in there, deputy mayors have been in. I know I've spent sometimes 3 days in Parliament lobbying to all different parties about the Growing Suburbs Fund. And the Growing Suburbs Fund has produced for our council over the last 4 to 5 years, $16 to $20 million worth of infrastructure that wasn't in our budgeted projections. So that's a real bonus. And in endorsing this Princes Highway Southside Shared Pathway application, you need to have projects which fall in line with the ground rules that the government sets on these applications. So they need to be pretty much shovel-ready projects. They need to be things that they would endorse being built extra into your community. They can't be things that you already had budgeted to get paid for. And in this case, they're asking for a one-on-one funding. In the past, you didn't have to have one-on-one funding, but at the moment you do. And in this project, council's funding into this project will come from the Office of DCP, developer contributions, and then also too, it will come from council's pedestrian and bicycle strategy budget. So that's where this money will come from that council will be putting in, and that will be matched dollar for dollar by the state government, which is out of a $25 million fund, which gets shared amongst the different projects for all the 10 interface councils. And this year, there'll be actually 6 peri-urban councils included. So it'll be a little bit tougher, but we have a really, really good reputation for delivering on these projects. So I'm sure they'll be seeing our project put forward in a light that they know it will be delivered on time. Anyway, that's all I had to add. I hope my fellow councillors support this. I know it will really benefit the community. I know, anything to do with pathways or sharing for riding and walking at this time particularly is really important that people have options. So anyway, I just put that forward to council and hope for the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll go to the second and then Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I just want to speak particularly around this application. It's fantastic. This pathway is a high priority in our pedestrian bicycle strategy. It is so important for the townships of Pakenham, Officer, Beaconsfield, really. The way Officer, develops, it is piecemeal and a bit ad hoc because of the large number of property owners, and development is staged, and it depends on when the owner wants to develop the land. So at the moment, we've got sections of the highway with no paths, no connections. You've got footpaths stopping at the end of their development. And that causes, obviously, safety issues and just inconnectivity. And this application will bring forward those missing links. So you can, from Pakenham, get to Beaconsfield on this shared footpath. It is so important. As you mentioned, Councillor Ross, people, through this crisis at the moment, need to exercise, and people are utilising these paths. So to have a shared footpath, a wide footpath, connecting those 3 towns in particular is a really good thing and welcome. The section of path we're talking about is the missing link from Heather Bray Reserve along the Princes Highway to Fairweather Parade in Officer. What's happening at the moment, there's a budding development to there that will bring that footpath to Brunt Road through their requirements of that development. That is a permit condition, so that path will be delivered. And also what's happening around the O'Neill Road intersection in Beaconsfield, where as part of that intersection, there's going to be further pedestrian improvements along that south side of the old Princes Highway. So therefore, as part of this will link those 3 townships together with those other bits of work happening at the moment. So I really look forward to this path being connected. I really hope we are successful. I think we've got a really strong case that this project will benefit a lot of our residents and connecting our townships, our safety, etc. So thank you to the officers for nominating this project. I understand this current fund round application, there's different rules to previous years. So there is caps to how much council can be successful in. So I'm really hoping this one is successful. I think we've got a good case. It would be great if we can get this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll go to the Councillor Jodie Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is why it's important for council to have a healthy budget and to make sure as councillors we support these healthy budgets. The Growing Suburbs Fund actually came into account because with us going to CPI, it allowed more money from the government to flow to the interface councils which need it. This project is fantastic. It's hopefully will get over the line. Cardinia has got a brilliant record in with the Growing Suburbs Fund, and I concur with the other Councillor Owen that that's due to our brilliant officers and the way they can write these applications. So I'm really excited to see another project. Yes, we will have to match it with some money, but thankfully in our budget we've got that, but we certainly do not have to find all the money that's required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Ross to summarise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd just like to continue to highlight. I'm off mute, aren't I? Am I off mute? I am. Fantastic. Look, I'd just like to highlight the fact that these pathways in an interface area are really, really difficult to have built all at the one time, because often you'll have a developer that will build one, and then you get this land which isn't developed in between, and then you finish up with schools and shops and pathways, and people just don't have access to be able to walk through from one to the other. And because we used to be a rural area, you finish up with big highways with gravel sides on them, and to expect children to either walk or cycle on those is just extremely dangerous. So it is really, really important. It is one thing building up those linkages. And I must say the developers do in a lot of areas good jobs on building some pathways. Unfortunately, we get left with having to build up the linking up of areas. It's also noted too that the government has caught on to the fact that some councils in the past have been having things paid for which didn't really add to your list of things being done in your project. So this is an add-on. This is an extra budgeted project that we wouldn't have got the money for, and we wouldn't have had the money to build ourselves. So I just think it's great that these can, and as Councillor Fred Owen and Jodie Owen have already mentioned, it will benefit so many people and will link up. I know for a fact that if you have a look across the highway there, to go from down towards Cardinia Road up towards Officer High School, you really have a problem to try and find your way across without having to go across paddocks or things like that, or up towards the highway. With this pathway, it will ensure that they have a safe pathway to walk on, keep themselves out of the wet, and make their way down. And as Councillor Owen pointed out, it'll go from pretty much join up all the linkages from Pakenham all the way through to Beaconsfield. So that's really important, considering 80% of our people move out of the Shire for work. So anyway, I just think it's a really good thing, and I can't wait to see it built and to actually ride, run, jog or walk on it. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll now put this to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour? I declare it carried. Thank you. Moving along to item 6.3.1, Ageing Well Strategy for 2019 to 2025, withdrawn by Councillor Ryan. Councillor Ryan, you've got your microphone's muted there.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Just a bit of technical glitches there. I'm looking for support from my fellow councillors to adopt the Ageing Well Strategy 2019 to 2020, noting that the minor amendments made to the draft strategy following the community consultation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I was going to call for seconders, and I think Councillor Ross has got his hand up nice and early, so I'm going to say that Councillor Ross, would you second this item? Fantastic. I'll go back to Councillor Ryan now to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really, really wonderful thing that's happened with this. It's taken a long time, and this is a large attachment draft of the Ageing Well Strategy Action Plan 2019-2025. It's a 42-page report. So I'm not going to go right through all of it because I think, to read a lot of it and understand it is really important from different people's perspective. The report provides information from the public exhibition period and the appropriate amendments to the draft of Cardinia Shire Ageing Well Strategy. The Ageing Well Strategy provides a roadmap, a new roadmap for the council to support our older residents and to optimise their wellbeing. I think it's really important that this roadmap goes along the way where we help to improve mental health and wellbeing, reduce financial vulnerability, improve social cohesion, improve safety, reduce obesity, and reduce family violence. And I think family violence has been something that we've discovered since this has happened with this report. And more and more seniors are coming forward and talking about it, which is really great. We've also put out a magazine of Ageing Well, which is really, really positive to the community, and the feedback we've been getting is absolutely wonderful. Some of the other things that we've done from just getting the feedback from the community is things that apply to them. We're an ageing community, and sometimes the seniors and older residents felt that they were forgotten about. Before I came into council, there wasn't much happening with seniors and older residents whatsoever. There was only a little bit, and they felt that, no one was listening. And so one of these things when I came on board was my aspiration to help seniors and get them involved in the community and feel that they've got something to contribute, because they've got a lot of history that we don't find in history books. And, with our youth interacting in conversations with them, they find out more about the history of our community that sometimes, we don't always have an author that is willing to write about our history. I think some of the other things that, came from that is that we need to keep their health and wellbeing going. And I think part of that, and they're the most vulnerable group of people that we can talk about in reference to our community, because sometimes they isolate themselves so much that we forget about, their home on their own or just a phone call away. And with COVID happening at this stage, we're finding more and more people are isolating themselves even further from our ageing group. So with this attachment, I would like to see the support of councillors, because it enhances the policies with our social justice and equalities policy, our Cardinia Disability Access and Inclusion policy, our Safer Community Strategy, our Reconciliation Action Plan draft, and Cardinia Shire Food Strategy. It also is part of our lifestyle and our, sorry, I'm just scrolling down. It's a little bit difficult, so just bear with me. It comes under the Cardinia Shire Livable Plan as well. And so I'm so happy that this has come forward, but it's been a long time. And hopefully my colleagues will support this draft. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll go to Councillor Ross to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just supplementing Councillor Ryan's report, I must say this is an area on council that in the past we've gone through a real developing phase. I know probably the past 10 years in particular, we've been growing, 5 to 6 families a day moving into the area. A lot of them have been young families and people who are sort of starting off or people who are new migrants to Australia. And in the future, we're going to be, some of the projections let us know that with affordable housing out further, we'll go from about 17% of our population who will be of the seniors and older age to about 25% of our population. And with that growth comes a whole lot of people who are going to look to do things on a local basis. So we're going to need to be able to provide the activities, the support through services for them, and to build some infrastructure for them. Because if you have a look around, a lot of our infrastructure for seniors is quite old, whereas we cater a whole lot more for the growing younger families with a whole lot of things. And I think this will be a refocus of council over the next 10 years. Now, with this report and their amendments, this fits into the 5-year strategic priorities for older adults inside Cardinia Shire. And it's exceedingly important because if you don't have a plan and you don't have a direction to go in, how do you ever find your way there if you don't know what it looks like when you're going to get there? So I just think this is really, really important. I think this will be built on so much more in future. And with the COVID-19 situation, you're going to have a lot more people stay at home now and do things locally. They won't be travelling around quite as much. And I know that because my father's 80, going on 83, and he's a big traveller. He loves to get out and go around and particularly drive his caravan around Australia and have a look. Well, he'll be staying home a whole lot more, and he doesn't live in Cardinia Shire. And I must say, if he's a reflection upon other people who are retired and are moving on in age, we just need to keep providing, like we do for our young families, with a whole lot of things for these people to do. So anyway, this opens a conversation. I know it was really well attended, the draft that went out to the community. And I must say, if it's anything like my dad, people who are getting a little bit older are happy to share what they think, and they're not bashful. They will let you know, which is really good because you never get left wondering what's on their mind. And they shared a whole lot into some of these amendments. So anyway, I just endorse it. I'm interested to hear what my fellow councillors got to say. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll go to Councillor Jodie Owen next to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is indeed a very important document. It builds on the work of the previous council, who for the first time saw Cardinia Shire recognised as an age-friendly cities. And that was an outstanding outcome because prior to that, that had not occurred. Then we have the build on with, sadly, with domestic violence. We've got Together We Can, and through that we've learnt the impact that domestic violence have on our seniors. So there's been significant work over the last 2 councils and multiple mayors to ensure that our seniors are well recognised. I know myself, who was on the age-friendly committee for 6 years, spent a lot of time getting out and about and making sure our seniors were taken seriously. And that's how the Age-Friendly Cities accreditation came to council. But I support this because, yes, we do have an ageing population, and our seniors are our wisdom. It's where we learn things from. It's where our young people learn positive behaviour and positive role models. And I think it's really, really important that council moves in all directions and makes sure we look after our whole population. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Schilling would like to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I support this new age-friendly strategy. I think it's a great document. It's been put together with some great community consultation. I think since this term of council, we've got our facilitator in this space, which I think we've seen has been fantastic. in terms of being able to put this strategy together. And I think that the hard work, as Councillor Owen has said, this council has been focused. But in terms of this roadmap, I see this more as a roadmap for the future, where it's going to take successive councils and people to really advocate to get funding. Looking at the strategy, it's a fantastic strategy, and I think the outcomes are really achievable, but also it's got quite a small budget attached to it currently. So I think this is a fantastic start, and I think that the more advocacy in this space, the better, particularly around attracting funding for this moving forward. But I'll be supporting the adoption of this strategy tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to speak on this. This age-friendly strategy is a very important document for us as councillors to have before us tonight. And I fully support it. And I want to thank Councillor Carol Ryan for her input into this. I know it's one of her aspirations and one of the things of this year that Councillor Ryan has been hang a hat on, if you like. And I really congratulate her, because I call they're not older people, they're more senior, our more senior valued community, and they put a lot of input into our community. You know, people don't understand the amount of meetings that they have, like the U3A, all these sort of meetings that they have are run by our more senior people, our the wealth of information that we need to respect. And this document does highlight how we need to sort of look after them and support them as well as our normal community. So I really support this, and I think it's a really great document, even though it is large to read. But and I want to thank the community for their input that they put into this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll go to Councillor Brett Owen to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all the other councillors for speaking. I just really like this document. It's a whole of council approach. It covers all departments. You know, all departments of council are responsible in delivering this policy, ageing well action policy and plan. And I do thank the officers involved. We've got some great officers, ageing well officers at the Shire, that obviously, as mentioned by other councillors, have worked with the community in creating this plan. But I really like the whole of council approach, and something that we've been doing in recent years is upgrading our senior citizens club buildings. And Councillor Schilling and I are on the Access and Inclusion Committee, and definitely it is high on our priority list is to make these facilities more accessible. The document talks about all council facilities, whether new, and making sure that they are appropriate of people of all abilities, and obviously our ageing community is also really, really important. So it does talk about in one of the actions, council's new and existing assets are accessible, a high priority. Also providing support and funding to the senior citizens group to facilitate their activities within council facilities, and this is really important. In my role as council, I love going to senior citizen groups, whether it's Pakenham, whether it's Emerald Evergreens, and really interacting with the community. And council has a key role in supporting those groups. So I really like this policy and action plan. It's a whole of council approach, which I like. We all own it. We need to all help deliver it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Ryan to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors for the support. I think it's really important that, as we said, that we are an ageing community, and this report and this draft strategy was put out to the community, and it was quite a large environment where we focused on workshops, community surveys, putting in the paper, meeting face-to-face, continual phone calls. And I do thank the team that I've been working with. They are absolutely a wonderful team. When I first had the opportunity to come in and talk about I was concerned about our seniors within our community. We sat down and we had a consultation and we talked about, I'm a senior, so I get where a lot of them are coming from, and we've got seniors on our council, as a lot of the people in our community would see. And so we do have a different age group within our council, and that's what makes our council so unique. I think the whole thing is that one of my sayings is that one day when you get to my age, if you're lucky enough to get there, we'll have these things in place for you. And that's what we're doing. That's what this is all about, getting things in place now for our residents that need it, but also for our future residents. And our future residents are going to be our youth getting older. So I don't think our youth will see it that way, but I think the mapping, the roadmap was really fantastic from the information that we got back. And the community has had an opportunity to have the input in this draft and developed by public exhibition. And it was 4 weeks, and there were minor adjustments and listening to the community. And I think that's what we forget to do sometimes. We forget about our seniors and our older residents. And that shouldn't, we talk about our whole community, but our whole community is part of our seniors. And I'd hope that people who are listening to this tonight and hear about this strategy plan and draft and what my fellow councillors have pointed out is how important it is that they make up a vast number of our community, and they do have the history there that we can learn so much from. And I value each time I catch up with them. I do have a gentleman in seniors that's 101 years old, and he keeps me in line when I haven't seen them enough. So, and I think that's fantastic because, you know, sometimes we all need a bit of reminding that seniors are important and that they do have a voice, and now they have a voice through us. And this plan and this draft and this policies that's involved in this, and the whole lot of work that the team had done has come together so well that I'm so proud of everybody that's been involved. And I'll leave it at that because, again, I thank my fellow councillors for the support, and we'll see progress happen very quickly from here on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Well said. I'll now put this to a vote, councillors. All those in favour? I declare this item carried. Thank you. Moving along, or taking a quick step backwards because I messed up my order a little bit and I skipped an item. So just to go back to item 6.2.5, the 2020-2021 Festival and Events and Community Wellbeing and Support Grants recommendations withdrawn by Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to move the officer's recommendation that Council approve 51 festival and event grants to the value of just over $226,000, and second, approve 41 community wellbeing and support grants to the value of just over $77,000.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Can I have a seconder, please, for this item? Councillor Owen. Back to you, Councillor Schilling, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Owen, for seconding this important item tonight. This is a great story to share, and particularly in the days where there's not all that many, unfortunately. These grants are designed to support community groups so they can really continue to do what they do best, and they're meant to provide opportunities for residents in the Shire to participate in local groups, local events that really contribute to the well-being of our residents. This year we had a great response to both of our festival and event grants and community wellbeing and support grants. For this particular round. They opened for applications on the 28th of January and they closed on the 2nd of March. So in terms of the breakdown of these two particular grants, the festival and events grant had just over $243,000 worth requested, with a total of 54 grant applications, whereas the community support and wellbeing grants had close to $159,000 with 55 grants requested. So the way that council assess these and how people know what to apply for is they're broken up into three broad categories. One of them is a seeding grant, which is up to $5,000, and these are for new groups that are starting up within the community. And that $5,000 can go towards a range of items such as promotional material to advertise new programs, incorporation fees. Insurance is always a big one for new groups that start up. It's quite expensive, and it's hard if you're a new group trying to get off the ground to be able to fund that. If you need to design a newsletter or a website and purchase the small items. We also have in that set volunteer grants, which is around establishing volunteer programs, training and developing volunteers. This is also incredibly important because as a council, there's only so much we can do with a limited budget. So these community groups are really doing a lot of hard work that as council we would struggle to do. So being able to provide these grants helps give hardworking volunteers just that extra leg up. And there's also small change grants, which are available for the purchase of small items. These are those little expenses that groups come up with that it's just that little bit more challenging to fundraise for. Now, these applications, once received, they're assessed by a panel, which is a very fair panel consisting of council representatives and council staff. And from that assessment, the panel has recommended 55 grants from the festivals category be recommended, and that's totaling just over $226,000 worth of grants, and 41 grants from the community support and wellbeing were also recommended, which totaled just over $77,000. So as my colleagues around the table and the community can see, there's quite a high percentage of grants that were recommended based on the number of applicants, which really does show to the community that it's incredibly important to apply for these grants. People put so much effort into their local community groups and so much effort into volunteering. These extra funds really do help, and the people that benefit the most from it is our local community, because there is that extra level of activity and community activity. And as councillors, we've all been privy to these recommendations, and I'd love to be able to share with the community tonight some of the grants that have been approved, but unfortunately we have to wait for the council resolution, so the unsuccessful applicants and the successful applicants can all be notified. But I'm sure that you'll all join me in saying that we'll be excited once these grants are announced to the community, and for me, look forward to being able to follow the progress of these activities and where this money will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. I'll go to Councillor Owen to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Thank you for a great introduction to this, Councillor Schilling. Just noting that Councillor Brown and Councillor Ryan and myself were the three councillors on the committee, and definitely, the applications were impressive. It's great to see a lot of new applications, new groups, whether they're for the support grants and also for the festival grants as well. We saw a lot of new sort of applications for new events, etc. We're currently in some tough times, and when we do come out of this, these grants will help facilitate the community coming together in whatever forum to really get back to hopefully near norm, and working with the community to celebrate our community. I understand throughout this year we've had a number of events as councilled as well, and officers have worked with those previous applicants to obviously ensure that any costs are recovered, etc. through these tough times. We have seen a number of festivals cancelled throughout the current climate. But I'd like to thank the officers as well, and the councillors on the committee. We worked really hard to go through these applications, and I'm really pleased about the number and looking forward to sharing obviously those results and notifying the successful applicant. So thank you, and yeah, I fully support this item, and once again, thanks to the officers, and I look forward to hopefully soon that these festivals and events can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to thank my fellow councillors, Councillor Brown, Councillor Ryan, and Councillor Owen, actually, for being on this committee. It's a big job. I know for a lot of years I've been on this committee and have to sort through the funding and get the balance right. When I first came on council, I came from festivals. I came from this. These grants are so important to our community, and so that's why we hold them in high stead. To get these funding out to our community. It is unfortunate that the COVID-19, the pandemic we have, has cancelled some of these fantastic festivals we have. Very unique, they are festivals, some of them, to Cardinia and Pakenham in particular. So I only wish and hope that these festivals and the grant funding that we supply can hold them together and bring them back, because we know what it's like. If one year you don't have a festival or an event on, it's very, very hard to come back on the second year round. So I plead to the community, these committees, these hard-working committees, to hold in there and hang in there, because we're there for them with these grants. And I want to just reassure them that we're there to support them, and that's what these grants are for. But the staff are doing a fantastic job I know liaising with these committees and trying to hold them together, but I know how difficult that is to do, and I congratulate everybody for doing this and getting this down tonight, and I hope we get it over the line at the end of the day. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Schilling to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor, and yes, thank you, Councillor Brown, Ryan, Owen, for being on that committee. And there is quite a lengthy criteria, as all councillors are aware of. So it does take some considerable time to be able to assess all of these applications. And looking at them this year, there was of an incredibly high standard. And whilst there was some applications for more traditional events, you can already see how people are diversifying, I guess, and looking forward and looking at ways that events and community groups have to adapt to changing times. And like Councillor Moore, I'm looking forward to a time in hopefully the not so distant future where we can all get back together and enjoy these events again, because as it has been echoed tonight, the community really do benefit from these grants, and they're really the lifeline in a lot of ways to a lot of community groups in being able to offer these services and events to our local community. So thank you all those councillors who spoke on this item, and I hope that everyone gets together and supports these applications so the successful applicants can find out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Councillors, I'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the item carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving along to item 6.4.1, Community Capital Works Grants Underspend Proposal, withdrawn by Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council approves the grants to the 6 applications which were refused on account of not meeting the financial threshold in the 2019-20 Community Capital Works grants, and the balance of funds be redirected towards the 2020-21 grants program.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Moore. I'll now go to Councillor Brown to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think that the previous conversation regarding grants is a nice little dovetail into this conversation. The fact that $187,000 was going to be returned to the 2021 grants because they weren't claimed this financial year is, to my way of thinking, suggests that there's something dramatically wrong with how we're issuing these grants. You can apply for a maximum of $30,000, but to get that $30,000 approved, you have to have $60,000. And for small clubs, that is by and large far too much to expect clubs to have that type of money. And even if they want to have a project for $20,000, they have to have the $20,000. Even though it's dollar for dollar, and the way I think dollar for dollar is that if I've got $1, you'll give me $1. But no, I've got to have the $2 and then ask you for that dollar later. I've got to pay my way before that. I understand that council officers are bound because there is a condition that you must provide the full amount of funding when you make your application. And when they peruse these applications and organisations asked, are they eligible? First thing they ask them, have you got the full amount of money? Those people that haven't don't apply for the grant. Obviously don't apply for the grant because of the amount that's going to be returned. The 6 clubs in question only failed because they never had the total amount of funding for their projects. And the total amount of money we're talking about here that these clubs have found is $87,626. So these clubs have got $87,626,000 to facilitate improvements to our facilities that they do use. But bear in mind, they are our facilities and we are going to reap the benefit as well as the users by having our facilities improved. The users in these instances are people that work very hard in the community. They range from asphalting of a hall, car park. They range to carpet in a kindergarten, storage facilities at sporting grounds. So they're all applications which, if they had had the double the amount of money that they're prepared to put in, that they were able to put in, these would have been granted. It's fair to say that there may be some groups who feel put out because they were not allowed to apply because they never had this amount of money. But I think it gives us as a council the opportunities to be flexible, to look at this rule and say, is it a good rule? And I'm happy to say that it's under consideration for next year. And I'm fairly confident that we will return to the dollar for dollar, which means that if you want a project worth $30,000, you only have to find $15,000 of that money. With regard to these applications, that $87,000 that the community is going to contribute, together with council's $87,000, comes to $175,000, which will be put straight into the community. And in these uncertain times, and I guess a dismal time for some, it's going to boost morale with the clubs and also provide a much needed boost to the economy. I think I'm asking councillors to be flexible and look at this rule and say, look, we've got a chance here now to do something good. We could let these people go through to next year. We could deny this and say the funding would go through to next year, but I'm fairly confident that these grants would be approved next year because, after all, the only thing they missed out on was the financial threshold, which they would be able to meet next year. And why would we want to delay them for 1 year? That's about all, Mayor, that I've got to say on that. Thanks at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'll go to Councillor Moore to speak to this item next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had no hesitation to second this alternative motion. We talk about supporting our community. We say it loosely sometimes. I say, but this is so important that something we can make a positive impact to our community, and this is one way we can do that. With a small amount in comparison to a lot of things that we do, $87,000 to get some of these projects over the line, as Councillor Brown is dead right, about 100% right he is. When it comes down to, like I said, it's the difference between having our community supported and showing support from us, getting our buildings and projects done on the site, as well as, you know, because they're willing to support it as well. A lot of these projects that we're talking about here have been a long time coming, and this is an opportunity here that we can get this, if we can get the councillors together and make this really happen. Because on the overall scheme of things, it is very minimal to us, but it's going to make a big impact to our community. And I think this is one of the most important items tonight on the list, I can tell you, because it gives us an opportunity to have our own. It's our own mini stimulus package, if you like, if you want to call it that. So we can, while this COVID-19, this pandemic that we're facing and is hurting our community really badly, we show a bit of light that we're going to support it somehow and get something done on the face of it. So I've got no hesitation to support this, and I want to thank Councillor Brown for his alternative motion, because I think it's well worth supporting. And I really think that we should show our community, just through these 6 items. I mean, I think it's unsaid what we can do here in this spot. So I've got no hesitation, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Brown, to support this particular item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Schilling, I'll go to you next to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just supporting Councillor Brown tonight in redirecting this funding. If it was any other year, I'd probably have a few more reservations, but given what's happening right now in the community, we know that people are struggling. We know that there are many people in our community that are out of jobs, and we know that the industries that are hit hardest will be things like your construction. So being able to put money back into our clubs, as small as it may be in the scheme of the council budget, every little bit does help. Feedback that we get regularly from clubs is that applying for grants can be quite difficult as well. It's not a simple process for people. So look, as a once-off this year, I will support that those 6 projects do receive that funding. And I'm also quite keen to look at how we can make this process better by looking at that dollar for dollar model. And because there's sort of an expectation, I think, within sporting groups is your committee members and your participants, they just want to play sport. They just want to enjoy their sport. And the amount of fundraising that has to be done and the amount of extra red tape that they have to go through to raise funds it's a big burden. So I think we need to look at ways that we can do it better. But yeah, definitely, given the current state of events around the world and how we're being impacted in our local community, I think it's only fair that we do think a little bit differently this year and we put that funding back into the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. With any other councillors? Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown and other councillors. I totally support you, Councillor Brown. I think we need to do a lot of removal of obstacles that currently exist for our community groups in applying for grants, and your intention here is definitely doing that. And I welcome the review of the current policy, and I think many of those aspects is captured in what you're saying. So I look forward to the review. I fully support your motion, Councillor Brown, but I would say there'd be other groups that were looking at the current policy that didn't apply because they didn't have that. So I appreciate that there may be other groups that was restricted because of the current policy. So I welcome that the remaining of the underspend is going to be forwarded and placed into the 2021 bucket. So there's more money available. So I welcome that. It's not being lost in the general revenue. These are getting, the remaining funds are going to be invested back into that bucket. So community groups can apply with, I'm hoping, improved guidelines to make it easier for community groups to apply, removing those obstacles. And totally agree with the comments said by Councillor Schilling, particularly in these times, we need these projects to get kick started. So I fully support this, and I welcome the pending review that council has started to commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now go to Councillor Ryan, who'd like to speak to this item.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm in support of Councillor Brown's motion. I think it's really important that we redirect this funding back so that the community can make good use of it. It's not an easy decision to make, but we are, as other councils have said, we are in difficult times at the moment, and the heart and soul of our community is the community groups that we support. And so we need to keep looking at that and other ways that we can help them. And, you know, some of them, yes, can be because of the paperwork. They don't understand it. And as Councillor Brown said, you know, if they don't, at this stage, if they don't have the money there, they're quite concerned that they're never going to be able to apply for funding. And I urge the community that it's always about getting some assistance from council that can get you through it and help you understand it even more, so that you can get the funding to support your groups. I mean, we're talking about netball teams, we're talking about cricket teams, we're talking about senior groups, kinders. You know, there are only a few within our community that do apply, but there's a lot more groups and associations within our community, again, that are the heart and soul, that have been here for many, many years and feel that, you know, they'll miss out because they just don't understand the policies and they don't understand how to apply. And again, if they don't have the money there, well, how can we match that? So in reference to that, I totally support Councillor Brown's motion and in redirecting this funding, and let's hope that these groups can work better after this COVID.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Brown to summarise.
Thank you, councillors, for your support, and well spoken, everybody. And I'm pleased to be able to know that the council officers are seriously looking at the conditions associated with these community capital works grants. They've been underspent year after year after year, and the reason why, I believe, is the financial threshold. By removing that threshold and making it easier and having a dollar for dollar, as the term sounds, to please do that dollar for dollar, so that community groups only have to find half, which is what they were pledged to do. I think we'll find that the grants from here on in will be fully subscribed, and in fact we may even have to increase and probably knock some back. After allowing these 6 groups, there will still just be on nearly $100,000 going back into the pot for the 2021, so more groups will be able to accommodate it, particularly those groups that missed out this year. And like Councillor Schilling says, under normal circumstances, rules are rules, and would have to be extraordinary circumstances to break or bend those rules. But I think these are extraordinary circumstances, and I would just like to thank every councillor that is prepared to vote for this recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillors, I'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the item carried unanimously. So thank you. Thank you, councillors. Now, that concludes discussion of the items withdrawn. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the recommendations for the balance of the items listed? Moved by Councillor Wilmot and seconded by Councillor Ryan. Councillors, all those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Reports or minutes of committees. I note that reports from various committees have been received in addition to the minutes of recent council briefing sessions, and these are available if any councillors wish to view them. Councillor reports. Councillors, do you have any matters you wish to report? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. On Saturday, the 11th of July, I attended an online Zoom forum for the Victorian Association of the Malawians and Friends. They held a forum called Change the Narrative, Raising Responsible Children Together Conversation. And Mayor, you were on that Zoom meeting as well and made the one of the opening addresses. And so was our CEO, Carol Jeffs, was also on part of that group, and a number of our staff were always also there. Last week we had our called advisory group committee meeting, and two of that committee are on this particular group. One of them serves as the vice president of the group. And the feedback that they gave me last week was that the forum was very well attended. They were really pleased with the way it was attended, not just by locals, but interstate delegates as well. They had about 50 people all up attend. They thought that your speech, Mayor, was absolutely fantastic. They particularly liked the part where you mentioned that raising a child is a community affair, that it's the whole of the community that raise children. They thought that was a great message and they really appreciated that. And they also wanted to pass on their sentiments that they actually felt really proud to be part of our Shire because of the level of support and the attendance at their forum. So I'd like to pass on the thanks to yourself and to our CEO, Carol Jeffs. And if I could just ask Ms. Jeffs as well to pass on the thanks to the staff members that were present as well, because as I say, they were absolutely chuffed that so many people had been part of their forum and that they were so well supported by their local government authority. So I thought I'd just pass that on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. I really appreciate you letting me know those sentiments. It warms my heart to realise it went down well. And I was very happy to be a part of their forum that they put together, which was about, raising children in this world, in this modern world, but also, with a focus on issues of domestic violence and such. And these are problems that we have escalating at the moment in our COVID-19 type of environment. So it's great to see community-led action towards helping unite each other in a peer group sort of environment to discuss the issues they face and discuss the challenges they have. So yeah, I didn't realise you were there, a part of that meeting. So it's great that you attended too. And I wish them all the best and all our great community groups that try and conduct these initiatives. It's a wonderful thing. That's why I think council, we don't lead the community as such, but we work alongside the community to help them lead themselves. And I think that is one of the better working models that we have, because, community-led action like this is so important. I'm going to go over to Councillor Brett Owen next, who would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, in your opening address, you noted the passing of two Cardinia residents, and I know Councillor Moore will talk about June. But I wanted to talk about Laura Evans, and she was amazing. When she passed away back in June, and I was in the position to attend her funeral during these current times, and it was a really good opportunity to reflect on Laura's life. Amazing lady, lived in Upper Beaconsfield for over 30 years, championed the environment. She was an author of a number of books, and you talked about some of those publications, Mayor, but also one of her publications was Black to Bush, which she published in 2014, and it details her story. As part of the Ash Wednesday fires, she rebuilt, her and her husband rebuilt a very forward-thinking house in Upper Beaconsfield after the Ash Wednesday, and it was basically built into the earth. And in that book, she talks about, obviously that build and that construction, and also the wildlife and fauna and flora, recovering after the Ash Wednesday fires. And it was an amazing book, and I was lucky to get a copy. It was fantastic. Also, she was involved in a number of groups, obviously the Salisbury Gully Reserve, just right in the township of Upper Beaconsfield, And back in 2014, on her 90th birthday, there was a small presentation of some plaques, unveiling of some plaques on some park seats in that reserve. So it was a great recognition. She was heavily involved in the E.A. Owen Conservation Reserve, which obviously is named after my father and Dickey Road, and she heavily led that community group in relation to the management of that. So I thank her for her passion in relation to that reserve. She was awarded the Upper Beaconsfield Citizen of the Year back in 2002 for her amazing service. She obviously represented UBA, a very active member as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge the great Laura Levin. So thank you, Mayor, for that. Also, the Casey Cardinia Foundation's round of grants has just closed. So I believe that the foundation got a number of grants. So as a director of those, in the coming weeks, we'll be assessing those grants and distributing those grants across the Cardinia and Casey community. So thank you for that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Moore, I invite you to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to share this with Councillor Brown as well, because I know that Councillor Brown knew June Wright a lot more than I did for many, many years, but I knew June OAM, fantastic lady. What a great asset to the Coorab, particularly and surrounding areas, particularly in the scouting area. I'm not sure how many years that June was on with the Scouts, but I know that every meeting, everything I went to, she was there supporting that group and that young group right throughout. So I know that we're going to miss her badly. Probably the highlight of my mayoral year would have been presenting June with being the senior citizen of Cardinia Shire in that year. And I actually, she couldn't attend the Australia Day celebrations, and I actually went to her home and presented her with her award because she had an injury to her leg. But fantastic lady, what a really great spirit to have amongst our community. And this is what our community is all about, and it's just going to be sadly missed. And I send my condolences to her family because I'm sure she's going to be sadly missed. But I would like to hand over to Councillor Brown, if he may, to just maybe expand on his knowledge of June. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, I've known June for nigh on 50 years, which is a long, long time. She spent 40 years in the Scouts and the Cubs, and she really carried the show on her back a lot of times, literally carried on her back. She was the Scout leader. She was a district leader. She was a governor. She held every post, I guess, in the Scouts that you could imagine. She also formed or instigated the op shop in Couirab. That's op shop was her doing. She had the vision, and she knew where the building was, so she made arrangements and she tamed the building. And that op shop has put back nearly $700,000 back into the community. She organised the volunteers. She priced the goods on them, and the ladies would say, woe betide you if you tried to sell them a bit cheaper than June's ticket, because she used to come in and check, and so she held a pretty tight rein. Jeff passed away in 2009. Jeff was her husband, and together they were a very formidable team around the town of Couirab, particularly with the Lions Club, which Jeff was a charter member. And June joined the Lions not long after, when ladies were admitted. She was a Lioness before then, of course, which was the ladies' arm of the Lions Club. She was highly recognised a number of times for the hard work she completed throughout her life. In 1997, Cardinia Shire crowned Jeff and June as joint Citizens of the Year, and Australia Day in 2008, the Couirab Township Committee also awarded them Citizen of the Year. She was also honoured with the Order of Australia in 2017, and she was very, very proud of that, although she was the last one to say that she deserved it. And in 2019, she was nominated to receive the honour of Victorian Senior of the Year. She was nominated for that award. Didn't win, of course, but she was nominated for. And before she passed on, which shows how sudden it was, she was had just commenced her second term as Coorabma District Lions Club president. So even at that age, June had put her hand up again to serve as president. So I'll miss her. Sitting outside the newsagents on the cold days, any particular day, there would be June at a little card table selling raffle tickets, Scouts, Lions, you name it, she'd be there selling raffle tickets. And always had to hit your pocket, otherwise you'd hear from her. So I'll miss her, and the whole community will miss her. And thank you for your kind words, Graham. I'm sure most people in the Shire will as well. So Vale, June, and it was unfortunate that because of the COVID restrictions that the funeral was restricted to 20 people, but I believe the Lions, when this pandemic has passed to some extent, intend to give her a fitting send-off. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Well spoken, well spoken. And I think yourself, Councillor Owen and Councillor Moore have really summarised these fantastic people's lives very well. So fitting tribute. Thank you all. Councillors, was there any other councillors that would have reports they'd like to bring forward? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to thank the team in working closely with some dumping of rubbish. It's been a continual ongoing issue within our community, and I'm happy to say that one particular property, the rubbish has been cleared and the residents are very, very happy about it. But it has taken a few months, and I think Councillor Owen, Brett Owen, he's been aware of some of the properties going closer to Officer as well that had the same issues. And but I'd like to thank the team for working so hard, because without our community informing us, without us seeing it if we're driving past it, then these things aren't going to be done. And so they're the sort of jobs that are being done during our pandemic. I think the community doesn't realise that there is work still going on, and it's wonderful to see, but it takes a team to work together to have success in the information being followed through with, right through to the team finishing. Continual over the time, you know, as we all have, we've been, you know, phone calling residents and keeping that contact. And it's really important that we keep that contact with everyone, because, you know, sometimes we can do some interesting things on video and you can have a good laugh about it. I think even the councillors have had showing our dog day, which was an interesting concept, because some of our dogs were a bit resistant on being on video. But most of the work that's been happening with me, that I've been involved in, again, with Mental Health Victoria, and there's quite a few programs that are coming up that you can register and go on Zoom. And one of them in particular that I'm really pleased that it's happening now, because we had lengthy discussions in reference to why it wasn't being addressed, and it's men's wellbeing support groups, and getting more support groups out there for our males that sometimes aren't always keen to talk about things that are going on. But I think in these times we need those support groups, and so working alongside with Mental Health Victoria, I'm really pleased that something else that's come out of it, as well as, again, our seniors and senior abuse. It is going so well that more and more people are responding, and we're getting more and more information in. So keep that information coming in, because you know, we can only pass it on and get things improved within our communities with the information to pass on to our teams to help us, but also I'm just really proud to be part of Mental Health Victoria, to be part of some of the projects that are happening there. So that's what I've been doing over this time. So I'll leave it to anyone else that wants to speak. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Would any other councillors like to bring forward any matters to report on? All right. There being none, we'll move along with the agenda. Next up is community question time. We have received a question from Jamie Longmire. I refer the question to Carol Jeffs, our CEO, to read and answer. Ms. Jeffs, if you'd like to take the question, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr Longmire, for your question. The question is, has Council considered supporting the motion to rule out working with contractors who work on Adani's Carmichael coal mine? Council does not have an official position in relation to not working with contractors who work on Adani's Carmichael coal mine. We do, however, follow very strictly what's in our procurement policy, which states that Council's procurement activities and its contracting, purchasing and contract management activities will support the Council's corporate strategies, aims and objectives, including but not limited to those relating to sustainability, protection of the environment and corporate responsibility. So thank you for your question, and while we don't have a specific motion about the Adani Carmichael coal mine, we do have a very solid procurement policy. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. Well answered. A written response will also be provided to Mr Longmire. Councillors, that concludes tonight's proceedings. May I have a motion, please, to now open the meeting? Moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Jodie Owen. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you very much, councillors. That brings our meeting to a close. So well done, everyone. I think we got through a lot of items tonight and well spoken on all fronts. And it is a difficult time doing these online such meetings. So I hats off to all of you guys for for conducting it so well. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you all again soon. And I now declare this meeting closed. Good night, everyone.
Great job.